Righty. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Fierce Friday. Today is March 7th, and we're so excited. We have a lot to share with you all today when it comes to taking care of yourself, self-care, nurturing yourself, but especially for our mothers, during postpartum. So, my name is Dominique Jeffries. I have been a part of the Million Mom movement now for about 4 months, I believe. And I'm joined here today with my fellow council members, Grace, Naeva, Sherry's here also. And yeah, I'm really passionate about being a part of this community. I was raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I watched all of my grandparents deteriorate from lifestyle diseases. So it's really important to me to be able to transform my own health for my future family, but to create, a new way of living and lifestyle for my family lineage. So everyone that is here today is deeply passionate about family health, about nutrition, and just excited to share more with you all today. So before we get started, we always start these Fierce Friday Zooms off with our pledge. And thankfully, Anne-Marie was on early to the Zoom, and she's going to share and read our pledge for us and really what our mission is about.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Okay, so it says, I pledge to defend the health of myself and my family. I pledge to choose organic foods that are minimally processed and free of man-made ingredients. I pledge to read labels and educate myself on all aspects of clean living. I understand that my actions today will positively impact the health and environment of future generations. I am committed to sharing this movement of many. I am the Million Mom Movement.
Thank you so much for sharing. And if you can, to just be with, just elaborate a little bit about what this movement specifically means to you and your family.
Yeah, it's really special because I have two children, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. And as a mom, like most moms, you just want what's best for them. And sometimes if we haven't been educated ourselves as to what's in our food, we unknowingly give it to our children. And so I really appreciate this community because of the education that we receive. And specifically today's call, because I remember my own postpartum journey. I wasn't part of this community yet. And it was a struggle. Those, I would say, even up to a year after I had my babies, like mentally, hormonally. So yeah, I'm just super excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you said, yes, this community is about education. But there's a quote that I love, and it's that knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is really what the power is, right? So we have resources here that, not only are we going to be able to educate a lot of families today on postpartum support and nutrition and self-care, but it's really about taking that action and applying all this education that you have, the resources we have through these superfoods into your lifestyle and into your family. And that's when the real transformation happens. So thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to pass it to our speaker today, Grace. She's going to give you all the tools and tips about this transformation. So, Grace, I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you so much, Dominique. And hello, everybody. I am so happy to be here. I'm so passionate about this conversation around postpartum health. And so, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Grace Murdoch. I'm a mama. I'm a long-time traditional birth worker. I'm the founder of the School of Sentient Birth, which is making a comeback in April of 2025. And I'm also co-author of the book, A Bird's Eye View on Birth Work. In my own postpartum time and in my own postpartum need, I created an initiative called Postpartum Pulse, and that is a community and a methodology to support women and families postpartum. And I'm just so blessed and grateful to be a council member with the Million Mom Movement and a Green Diamond leader here with Purium. Um, Thank you. Sorry, my alarm to get on the Zoom is going off. Thanks for joining us as we come together to unpack the postpartum journey for women and for families. We'll talk about some of the trials and triumphs of postpartum, and we'll also potentially discover deeper needs for women and families that are or are not being met in our current culture here in the US for postpartum. Additionally, we're going to look at postpartum through an Indigenous lens and a more traditional lens and explore some of the time-tested models of postpartum care that, in my practice and observation, tend to bear more healthy and positive impacts for women, children, and families. And of course, we're going to talk about nutrition and the importance of nurturing the nurturer and how the beautiful superfoods that we have here on tap can really just build such a strong foundation for women and emerging families. I would love for you to take a moment to share in the chat in regard to what I've talked about so far. If there's anything that jumps out at you about the postpartum lens that we're going to look through today that feels the most exciting or that just jumped out at you, go ahead and put it in the chat. You're also welcome to just let me know where you are coming in from. Love for this to be a collaborative experience. Not seeing too much in there yet. All right. Okay, regulated hormones. Yes, please. So I talked about looking at it through a more traditional Indigenous lens, really supporting women and families. Yes, self-care. We have someone coming in from Oklahoma. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And really don't hesitate to share in the chat as we go along. Be a part of the conversation. I will invite us to stop at certain moments and share, but you're welcome to just jump in at any time that feels right for you. All right, so just a little bit of my background. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, where I live currently, to study quantum and holistic midwifery with a traditional midwife by the name of Wapio. And she attended births here in the South for over 35 years, starting her midwifery before starting her midwifery certification program. And I chose to study with Wapio because she had experiential context of the very thing that I was building the School of Sentient Birth around. And that was a deep, deep knowing that the container that women and families birth in, and everyone present or not present in that container, that creates an impact on the outcome of child's and a family's experience of birth. And that if we as a culture could create the ability to birth one generation into peaceful, non-traumatic, family-led birth environments with low to no interventions, that we would be living in an entirely different world within one generation. I really want to invite you to take that in. One of the mind-expanding realities that I got from Wapio is that in over 35 years of attending births, only one of those births ever needed intervention to avoid complication. And she largely worked with the Mennonite communities in her early midwifery journey, and they didn't birth their babies in the hospitals. They birthed their babies at home. And the women and the families made the decisions regarding their birth. And the midwife was there just to support should they need another set of eyes or hands or some medical support. But one of the things that Wapio said was that the most important thing that we could learn as a midwife is how to knit. Because if the midwife is over in the corner knitting, then what in the world could be going wrong? Nothing, right? So it's really about how do we create this culture of care in birthing, in postpartum, and really let the families lead through their deep intuition. One of the other things that I learned from Wapio that has always stayed with me is that many, many women and families fall through the cracks in the postpartum time. There's a lot of buildup and tending to when a woman is pregnant and when birth is imminent. However, a few weeks after the baby is born, many women and families in the US really feel like they're on their own. All right. So I wanted to tell a little bit about my own story postpartum, and that leads into my story of finding Purium. So I gave birth to my daughter at the age of 42. And so I was actually perimenopausal and postpartum simultaneously. I had extreme, extreme fatigue. Every day at about 3 o'clock, I would just crash. I couldn't take care of my daughter at that time, even if I wanted to, because I was just so crazy tired midday. I had 50 pounds of pregnancy weight and a lot of inflammation. So I felt really self-conscious, but I also just had less movement capacity and less range of motion. And I was experiencing postpartum rage and postpartum depression. And I was really lost, even though I had a lot of support in my postpartum time. I really modeled my postpartum journey from a lot of what we're going to explore here today. And I had someone that came in that was dedicated to making food for me and giving me massages. And I had coached postpartum families, and yet I was struggling so deeply. And that really brought a lot of guilt. However, once I integrated these superfoods, literally within 3 days, I had a return of energy and vibrancy. Over the course of 10 days, no pain in my joints. I was happier. I had tons of energy. Within probably 2 weeks, the depression and the brain fog started to lift. And I was working with Hashimoto's autoimmune disorder of the thyroid. And within 60 days, I was able to balance my thyroid numbers. I released 12 pounds in the first 30 days, and then I released 40 more over the next year for a total of almost 60 pounds released. Um, so I want to move forward and talk about what postpartum can be. All right. Postpartum can be a time for rest and replenishment. It could be a time for deep family bonding as a mother gets to know her baby and parents get to know their new baby and partners get to see each other in a more dynamic capacity. And they get to adjust to their new roles. And it could be a time for honoring our healing process. It could be a space for emotional and spiritual integration. Postpartum is really as profound of a transition as birth itself, if not more in some ways. It could be a period of community-led care where a woman and a family is held and supported rather than having to do it all alone. It could be a return to intuitive wisdom. It could be a sacred passage into parenthood with respect for what a woman's body needs and what her spirit needs and what her baby needs and her partner and the family as a whole. I'm wondering if you would take a moment to drop in the chat what part of postpartum journey that you're most excited about or most curious to explore. Okay, and then I'll come back and read that in a moment. What I'd really like to do now is to talk about some of the more traditional postpartum practices from around the world. It's good to know that a lot of the traditional cultures view postpartum as a 40-day sacred healing window. It's a time when a mother is really deeply cared for so that she can heal and bond and step into her new role with strength. It's a real contrast to, let me just stop this. It's a real contrast to the bounce back culture that we experience here in the US. All right. These traditions really honor the power of slowing down. So I'm just going to talk about a few of them. So in Mennonite and Amish traditions, women birth at home, they're surrounded by family. They have very little intervention, if any, and weeks of community support. So it's ensuring deep rest and a gentle transition into motherhood. And I want you to kind of listen to see what these traditions and cultures might have in common as we talk about them. In the Mexican culture, there are 40 days of healing with warm foods, herbal baths, abdominal wrapping, and support from family and community to ensure both physical and emotional recovery. Right. The Chinese culture has what they call sitting the month. And that's a carefully structured period of rest where mothers are nourished again with warming foods. They're protected from cold exposure and they're supported with dedicated postpartum caregivers who prioritize complete healing. All right, some African and Caribbean traditions, the elders and the grandmothers and the community members nurture the mother through body work, through herbal steams, spiritual guidance, shared caregiving responsibilities, and they really reinforce the importance of collective care. So just from what you've heard here, I would love to see in the comments what really speaks to you from what I've shared in terms of, if you had somebody in your life that was postpartum, or if you have experienced postpartum time or are a caregiver, what from what I've shared do you feel like is really, really valuable in supporting postpartum families? I'm seeing community support, 100%. Mama's having community. Yep. It is so vital. I love that that is one of the things that came up twice. Um, the postpartum, I want to talk a little bit about what I call the postpartum predicament in our Western culture. I'm so sorry. My kitty is like very adamant about being part of this experience. Um, in our culture, there is an immense pressure to bounce back, to get our post, our pre-baby bodies back, to get our work lives happening, and kind of return to the identity that we once knew. But what if we really honored it as a deep and sacred transition instead? Right. So some of the key struggles that I see as a birth worker and have experienced as a mother here in this Western culture is that most families have minimal leave and support. So a lot of mothers and parents are financially pressed to return back to work in just a few weeks. Granted, some women choose that and some parents choose that, and that's great. However, in my experience, because we don't have really generous maternity leave, it isn't as valued in our culture. Many families and parents are going back to work sooner than they want to. And sometimes that means formal care for their babies. Maybe their babies are going into child care with strangers, like really early on. There's also a lack of postpartum medical care. All right. The standard in the US after birth is the first checkup is 6 weeks postpartum. And with cesarean births on the rise for a lot of different reasons, it's really also worth mentioning that C-section is a major abdominal surgery. It can be very difficult and very painful to heal from, and it can leave women needing support that they're sometimes uncomfortable asking for. Sometimes it's even hard to hold their babies after a C-section. There's also an isolation and a lack of community. So instead of being held in support, and I just want to say I'm really generalizing here. I'm talking about what I've seen mostly. And many pockets and groups of people do create what they need, but I'm kind of doing like a broad sweep here and looking at Western culture in the US in general. So instead of being held in support, many new moms and new parents are often left to manage everything alone. I remember experiencing so many things postpartum that I was like, why have I never heard this? Why is nobody ever talking about this? Fortunately, I had a crew of other women who had also recently given birth. So my bestie and I, we created ongoing mama baby circles, and we rolled them out in 10-week sessions. And we just had women over to our houses with their babies. And we had elders in our community come and be the grandmas. And we had other women from the community come and talk about different aspects of postpartum care and natural birth and just things like that. So we really had to create the community we needed. There wasn't anything available for us to plug into. One of the really not talked about, but incredibly significant pieces is strained relationships. So hormonal shifts, exhaustion, changing dynamics really can create stress between partners. So both partners often end up feeling unseen, unheard, unsupported, and then they feel guilty because the prevalent narrative is like, you just had a baby, you should be like so incredibly happy. And often the husband or the partner falls into the role of financial provider. Again, I'm generalizing. And that can bring up additional compounding stress. I think that that was one of the things that I really helped postpartum couples with, and I somehow thought I was going to be immune to it, and I really wasn't. It was so difficult for my daughter's dad and myself. So again, in the chat, I would love to hear, did your, if you're a parent, if you've had a child, did your postpartum experience match your expectations? I would just love to see a yes or a no in the chat. No, I'm seeing exhaustion here. Okay, come here, kitty. I'm gonna put her down. Yeah, no, nothing of the sort. No, no, nope. Yeah, so we're seeing that there is a real gap, and I can't wait to have more of a conversation here about it. I wanted to move on to talk about emotional and relationship shifts of motherhood. And I say motherhood, but really when a woman gives birth, she doesn't just give birth to a baby, she gives birth to a whole new version of herself. She gives birth to a family, and everybody's roles change, right? So we talk a lot about postpartum in physical terms, but emotionally, it's just as profound, if not more. Um, when a woman gives birth, as I said, she not only births a child, but an entire family, a new version of herself. All the roles change, and that can be really, really tricky territory for everyone to navigate. Um, Often untalked about is a grief that many women that I've talked to seem to feel, and I felt it myself, around the loss of our pre-baby identity. Um, Also being in a body that we've never occupied before. My body changed so much after giving birth. I am a very physical person. I was a dancer. I was a performance artist. I toured doing hula hoop performances, and I was in just a completely different body. And in the past, if I wanted to make shifts in my body, I would just either up my level of exercise or maybe change my eating habits a little bit. I didn't have to do much to return to center, and that was not my experience postpartum. I definitely had a lot of grief, and also a lot of grief for many women and families regarding the birth experience they wanted versus the birth experience that they got. Um, I have literally listened to hundreds upon hundreds of women and families tell their birthing stories. I host birth story share circles. And one of the common themes is really feeling like we give up our power in our birth really often, especially in the predominant medical model of birthing. Again, revisiting shifts in relationship. Um, we talk a lot about what a woman goes through, but additionally, many fathers and partners, they feel a loss or a disconnection. So much attention on mom, so much attention on baby from others, but also the mother's shift the mother's attention shifts from that of her lover or partner to all of her attention starts to go into caring for this new being, and rightfully so, it should. Even her brainwave state. This was something that I learned that I found so fascinating, and I thought, wow, if more people knew about this. When a woman gives birth and she's in her early postpartum time, her immediate postpartum time, her brain waves actually shift and she's more attuned with her baby's needs. And so she's more in like an intuitive kind of expansive space versus list making and getting things done and showing up for people. So there's often this misunderstanding around, why aren't you more present? Why are you forgetting things? It's because that's the divine design of it, is that a woman would naturally become more attuned to what her child needs. All right. Let's see if I am missing anything here. Great. And so if you want to share in the comments, something I would love to know is if you've been through this journey, what was the most unexpected emotional challenge for you postpartum? I'm going to move forward into nutrition and the gut-brain connection. Um, Gut health plays a major role in postpartum recovery, from your digestion to mental health. So obviously, Purium is incredible because it offers us really easy, nutrient-dense blends that can rebuild and restore. I literally, it was funny, I ordered at that day, at that time, it was a 30-day protocol, and I ordered it, and I was feeling so guilty because I was a new mom. I didn't have that much money. It was the holidays, and I felt like I was spending a lot of money on myself. And I kept telling myself I was going to send it back. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm like going to send this back. This is like too much. And as soon as I opened it, I just got this like sense of you're doing something really good for yourself, mama. I found Purium. I don't know if you caught that. I was 2 years postpartum. So I didn't have Purium in my immediate postpartum time. And I remember that I would literally just roll up like lunch meat and cheese and like roll it up and be like stuffing it in my face. It was just anything I could do to like feed that hunger. I was kind of limping along trying to figure it out. And yeah, when Purium came into the scene, it was such a game changer. So I got really excited about sharing Purium with all the postpartum women in my life. I was still doing the mama baby circles. And not only did I help a whole bunch of mamas in my community with their health, but that's how I built my business. I had all these new mamas that were super stoked about having community, having a way to make their own money and still be able to be with their babies, and that we got to do it together. So it became a natural extension of these mama baby circles that I co-created with my friend initially just to get our needs for community and our questions answered. And a lot of these women are still like really near and dear best friends today. But getting a little bit more specific, the biomedic, that is really going to help to obviously heal your gut and help detox, especially if you did have to have any surgical interventions and antibiotics. Obviously, I say obviously, but there may be some people who are new here. Tart cherry and the aloe digest can really support digestion and help with inflammation. Um, I remember the first time that I had the tart cherry. So also in my postpartum time, I did not sleep more than 1 2 hour stretch in 2 years. Seriously. And so I was in like the insanity realms. And I remember sleeping not through the whole night because I was still breastfeeding, but I was able to fall back to sleep right after waking up, right after feeding my kiddo. And I finally started getting rest. And that is a complete game changer. I would say that was one of the number one things that that people didn't talk to me about for whatever reason, was how much I would not be sleeping and how much my anxiety would be increased. Um, it's also helpful, the Purium protocols, because we get collagen and protein, which can strengthen our tissues. It can support healing. It can give us energy. The aminos are so great for helping our body recover after giving birth. And then it can accompany just warm, easy to digest foods. One of the things that we were talking about earlier, right before we started the call, is to really understand deeply the impact that having a baby has on your body. A woman has to literally grow another human being from her tissues, from her energy sources. We don't often think about that, but that's crazy. And that really requires a lot of us. And then if we are breastfeeding, which I breastfed my daughter clear into like 4.5 years. I mean, she wasn't breastfeeding for every meal, but we were still dipping in. And so you need to replenish your own stores. And I think that that's what I really didn't have in my immediate postpartum. I think that that really contributed to my rage and my depression. And I was so frustrated about being so tired and feeling like why is nobody getting this? Um, but now that I've supported so many people to go through the journey, I can really I just can really see the benefit for, much more clearly. Um, all right, before we go to the next section, I wanted to just bring on a video of our dear friend and council member, Ashley Morales. She originally was going to co-lead this today, and she had something come up in her family. And so she just shared a video with us from her early, right after her postpartum time when she had first found Purium. And I would love to, for us to watch that now. Go ahead, Neva. Get that going.
Have enjoyed so much this lifestyle transformation, and it's been indeed that a transformation for our family. So myself personally, I have struggled all throughout my life with depression, anxiety, little amounts here and there. But then after I had my children, all three of them, I had severe postpartum depression. So I was to the point where I really didn't want to get out of bed. I wanted to take care of the babies and do nothing else. And so I had a big problems there, and I was having anxiety, probably having panic attacks about 7 to 10 times a week, and they were intense to the point where my husband would have to bring me out of them, get in my face and shake me out of it. So it was not a pretty time. And so I didn't know what to do, but I just, decided this is, I guess, how my life is going to be until I come out of it. And decided to do some research because my little boy, he's 2, he had some eczema issues. So we knew we needed to focus on the gut health for him. So that's where we found this wonderful transformation. And I was like, okay, this is going to help our guts. Sure, I'll lose a few pounds. That might help me feel a little happier. And my husband had some serious GERDs, some severe acid reflux symptoms. And so he was to the point where he was throwing up almost on a nightly basis. And my little guy, his eczema was getting worse and worse. So I just decided, okay, gut health is where it's going to be at. So we did it. And I did not expect to feel as good as I feel. I knew that it would help my husband, and he's amazing. He feels great. He is like, I'm never going back. So he's great. My little boy, we saw his skin clear up within a few days. And then the huge transformation that I felt was unbelievable. I jump out of bed before my alarm clock. I am excited for the day. I'm ready. I'm running around with my kids. I have all this energy. And if you know me, I am a sleepy person, and I need my nap, and I need my coffee, and I need multiple cups of coffee. I didn't even after about a week, I didn't even need coffee. And I was waking up before my alarm clock. I was so excited. And not only that, like when you focus on your gut health, then your mental health, you have all this mental clarity, the brain fog lifted. I was able to enjoy things. Just in general, I never thought it would be this happy again. So it's been amazing. And I feel so good. And our whole family's great. And we're not stopping ever. Have enjoyed so much this lifestyle transformation.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I really appreciate hearing from Ashley. The cool thing is, honestly, our stories are not unique. So many people who have engaged and brought these superfoods into their lives for various reasons have had similar and exciting results. And we're going to open up to hear a little bit more about that in just a moment. I just want to kind of close up some of the thoughts and bring it to a summary, what we've talked about. My highest hope is that we can reclaim postpartum as a time of deep care. And just to hit on a few little points, being able to rest without guilt, right? You're not lazy for needing to rest. It's essential. I can remember so many moments. I remember the first time that I got it, like literally I was like taking a shower. I had given my daughter to her dad. And I mean, I had mastered the 1 minute shower, but the deal was that her dad was going to take her. I was going to get to take a nice, long, luxurious shower. I got in, I turned the water on, I closed my eyes. I was like, ah. And then I hear my daughter crying, and I look up, and her dad is standing outside of the shower, bouncing her with this look of like, you need to take her back, and I was like, no, foiled again. And I always felt really guilty about resting. So giving ourselves and one another full permission to rest, knowing we're not lazy, understanding food is medicine, nourishment is the foundation of our healing. And we have it on tap here at Purium. Emotional integration. All right. So breath work, journaling, just getting out into nature. I remember just taking lots of walks with my baby strapped to me, just like trying to ground and feel myself again. But a lot of what has been mentioned in the chat, community care. We're not meant to do this alone, and neither are our partners. All right. So equally important to the mama having ample support is that her partner, her husband, also has support, because their lives and their roles are totally changed too, often in ways that nobody's really talking about and that we're not expecting. All right. So, having said all of that, I want to just acknowledge that I saw some kind of deeper additional conversation in the chat regarding the intimacy piece, and I would love to talk more about that at another time. I'm going to put my email address here, and if you want to reach out to me and be tuned into other things that I'm doing in terms of talking about this journey and birth in general, or if you just want to chat, you're welcome to reach out. Now what I would like to do is open up the Zoom to questions. I would love to hear from other women, men, families who have utilized Purium postpartum. So, okay, Martha, go ahead, please. And Naiva, can you help people unmute? Can I do that?
I do that. I'm unmuted. Thank you. I just want to let you guys know that postpartum, it can be 20 years down the road and you are still in a state of deficiency. You can still be in a state of depression that has never stopped due to the fact that you have not found what truly nourishes what you spent making that child. And my whole outlook on life has changed this past year. I went from postpartum depression into postpartum psychosis, and years and years of different meds trying to get that balanced out when all that was needed was proper nutrition to balance me back out. And it's never too late to get out of postpartum depression. It's never too late to balance your hormones. And Purium is literally the best gift for any woman who's had children, even if they're in their 50s, 70s, 80s. Having that nutrition, getting yourself back level, chef's kiss. Best gift ever.
Thank you. Sherry, love to hear from you, fellow council member.
Hey, thank you, Grace. Thank you, everyone. You guys hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I'm in my car. That's why I don't have my camera on. This is such an important topic, and it's one that always touches my heart on a personal level, because so much of what you talked about here today, Grace, I didn't experience any of that. Like, I didn't have the community with my first son. I didn't have the nourishment. And so many of the practices that you even mentioned about the postpartum period, it's like, it's so, you said nourishing meals and warm bath, and my whole body just went, like, of course. And it seems so obvious now, of course. But back then, I didn't know that that's what I was lacking. I didn't know that I was even, just quite honest, like, entitled to it. I came from I guess a mentality of what I had, we all sort of tend to repeat what we learned. And my mom was a very like go, go, go kind of person, get things done, always put too much on her plate. And I learned that that's, to be a good mom, you always have to be overwhelmed. And I remember when I first shared with her a couple of months after my son was born, and I remember first sharing with her, it was the first time I said the words out loud, that I was feeling really anxious and I was having a really hard time. And I was worried all of the time about everything from, and that any time that my son cried and I didn't know what to do in that very moment, I felt like such a bad mother. And her response was, yeah, I've kind of noticed that you're struggling, and I'm surprised that you're not able to do it as well as I did. And it's not to bash my mom. Yeah, I know. But I share this not to, I feel a little guilty sharing this now, but I'm sharing it for a reason, because that's what my mom saw growing up. So that's what she had taken on that same mentality, and that's what she was, kind of putting on to me. But there was something that happened in that moment where I just realized that, because she was struggling, right? And, and she was very deprived of nutrients, and she wound up needing to go on a sick leave, and she couldn't return back to work. She was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis and many other autoimmune conditions. So, that was a path that I saw, and I said I didn't want that. And I'm very thankful, to have had that example. And she's doing so much better now, and she's healed, a lot of the thought process that kind of, contributed to a lot of the dis-ease that she experiences today. But all that to say is that the mentality was very much like, you have to do it yourself. You have to do it, and you have to, doesn't matter, you just go, go, go. And I tried that for a little while, and I wound up in the hospital severely dehydrated with a breast infection, because my son was tongue-tied and couldn't breastfeed. And so I had to pump, and I wasn't taking care of myself. There was so many days where all I had all day long was 1 cup of coffee that I kept reheating all day long and never even got to finish. So imagine the dehydration, imagine the lack of nutrients and nourishment. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about that. I also just wanted to touch on the fact that I remember a friend of mine telling me when I was pregnant with my first son, she said, women have been giving birth for forever, right? Since the beginning of time. And they would do it, working in the fields all day, right? And being outside and living outside in nature and, carrying things and doing things. And today it's so interesting, because while I'm sure that there was a high incidence of unfortunately maybe births that didn't wind up coming to full term, or unfortunately it happened that sometimes the baby would die at birth, or the mother as well. But the incidence of complications was almost nil, right? Today, the incidence of complications is ridiculous. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Right? Something that is supposed to be so natural. All of a sudden we're looking to have, we apparently need so many modern interventions. And so I think that it just really goes to what we can do at the core of ourselves, whether we are getting pregnant, whether we are pregnant or in our postpartum period, is to nourish, focus on gut health, like you said so well, Grace. And gut health is key, right? It's key to our moods, it's key to our energy, it's key to our immune system. If you're breastfeeding, your baby is getting that immune support as well through your breast milk. It's so important. The only things I would add to the ULT would be the barley grass, because it's so great for milk production. I would suggest a dark berry protein as well. So nourishing, because when I think of nourishment, I'm always thinking healthy fats. And we talk about women and the mom brain postpartum. So I'm glad that you touched on that too, Grace. And it's like, no, it's actually, we accept that as normal, but just because something happens doesn't make it normal, right? And so if we look at the core of why that is, I love that there's a scientific reason for it, that a woman's mentality is supposed to shift to one of nurturing and nourishing the baby and only the baby. But on the physical side of why we tend to forget more things and why we're just not as focused is because we're lacking nourishment. And so the dark berry provides those healthy fats, it provides antioxidants, it's great for a nursing mom as well. And then I would just add to that the zinc aid for just a boost of immune support, and ionic elements, because the minerals too are so important when we are deprived after giving birth.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing from you. Amy, I'm going to bring you on in just a moment, but I did want to speak to something that you said, Sherry, which is, yeah, one of the things that my midwifery teacher really helped me turn around in my thinking was, she shared that piece around in over 35 years, only one birth, needing any intervention at all, and how what we have now is a model of birth based on preventing complications. So we're already interjecting interventions in anticipation of complications and most oftentimes the intervention can cause more complications and a landslide of interventions. And that's not always. Sometimes it really genuinely is needed. And so I'm thankful that we have, allopathic medicine as needed. But there is a shift in thinking that I think can occur regarding why we feel like we lose our power in birth, partially because we are handing our power over because we have been taught that we don't know how to birth and that well-meaning providers know how to birth more than we do. So it's a whole other conversation, but I really wanted to speak to that piece around complication, approaching birth from a lens of trying to avoid complication and potentially creating more. So thank you for that, Sherry, and all your input on the nutrition. All right, Amy, love to hear from you.
Hi, Grace and everyone. Thank you so much for this topic. I just had a quick question, kind of goes to what you were just touching on, so it may be part of the other conversation. But I have 3 granddaughters that were born by cesarean because it became very necessary for the safety of their mother. And I've heard on this call other times talking about how the natural birth process protects the baby and the mother so much because of transfer of good antibodies and other bacteria that is so helpful in the baby's birthing. You know what I'm talking about better than I do. Anyways, my question is, since, and this is the reality of so many people, they've had to have cesarean or they chose to have cesarean before knowing more options are available to them. How can we help support their health and the baby's health as they continue to grow in addition to Purium?
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think the really important thing is that women and families understand that we don't need to continue guilting ourselves. Oftentimes, when we come to a Zoom like this and we hear about an emphasis on natural birth and our birth was not that in whatever way, there can be this extra energy of feeling like we did it wrong. Motherhood and parenthood is just like, it's just fertile soil for feeling guilty and feeling like we did it wrong. So I think that's one piece, is just really leveling the field and just understanding that yeah, there, every family makes the choices that they make, and being heard is really important. I think that emotions are really tied into what's happening to us on a physical level. It's part of the reason that I do birth story share circles, is so that women and families can literally unpack their birthing experience. And I think just coming back to really nourishing and nurturing with whole foods and warm foods, and being mindful of building immune systems. I would say, hyper focus on building immune system. And you're welcome to reach out to me. I popped my email into the chat, I think. If I didn't, I will. And we can talk more about it. I mean, it's specific also to each mama and baby. But I think doing the work around healing whatever we feel disappointed about in our birthing situation, and not overemphasizing that something has been done wrong, and then just getting really present with where we're at and what is the makeup of mama and baby. Homeopathy is really great for that, because it's energy medicine, so we can really support mamas and babies in really gentle but strong ways through homeopathy for really specific energetics. It's a little bit of a broad question, and I'm trying to just give like a nice container for it, but it's a great question, and feel free to reach out to me about that, Amy, and we can talk more about it. Is there anybody else? I'm loving the conversation that's going on here in the chat. And is there anyone else? Well, actually, we're at 2:54, so I'm going to hand it over to Naeva. If you want to share your story, great. Otherwise, also just closing us out. It's been an honor to be here with you all. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Grace, for this incredible presentation. And thank you everyone who shared and everybody that's here as part of the Million Mom Movement Council. And I actually started as a postpartum mom with my youngest son. And I just want to share that with my first son, things were really hard at postpartum. I wasn't really supported. I had to go straight back to work when my son was about 6 months old. And it was something that I dreaded. I really didn't want to have to put my son in daycare and be away from him. And so it was this heart-wrenching thing where I had to work to be able to support us. And at the same time, I didn't really want to have to do that. And I was really undernourished. I was living off coffee. I was literally just trying to make ends meet. So I wasn't eating the healthiest. I was eating what I thought I could afford. And so, I was really depleted on top of it all. And with my younger son, I was way more supported. I had somebody that was supporting us at home. I had a beautiful maternity leave, and I was able to introduce these superfoods when I was about 4 months postpartum. And at the time, it was really hard for me to make the choice to invest in myself. And so I know this is something we can all relate to, because especially if we're living on a single income, then maybe it can feel like, oh my gosh, how can I invest this much money into something just for me? And the thing is that when you do this for yourself, it's going to empower you so much. And what it did for me is it helped me to not have to live off coffee. I was overwhelmed. I was undernourished. I was supporting, 4 older stepkids
kids and my son who had just started kindergarten. So I had 5 kids in 4 different schools. So my morning routine was crazy hectic. I was running out the door, with a cup of coffee. I was often coming home to clean up and take care of putting the baby down for a nap and taking care of the household chores. And I was often skipping meals and just living off coffee till like noon. And so if you can relate to this, go ahead and drop some love in the chat, because I know this is so relatable to so much of us. It's hard to invest in ourselves, and sometimes we're just burning the candle at both ends. And so it's so important that you do this for yourself, because when I introduced the superfoods, I was actually sleeping better. I had more energy. When I picked up the kids from school, instead of just wanting to like get through the end of the day so I could finally go to bed, I was actually enjoying going to the beach with the kids, their after school activities. I actually had the energy to keep up with them. So me investing in myself was the first best thing that I could do to actually help my children and my family better. And then of course entered the aspect of when I was pregnant and postpartum. It seemed that everybody else was also pregnant and postpartum and having babies in my community. And so it was this amazing thing where I helped myself first. I was getting the nourishment, I was feeling better in my body, I was able to make it through my day. And other moms were noticing that about me. And they're like, what is it that you're doing? And so as they leaned in, I was actually able to just naturally share what I was doing, just like you would share your favorite restaurant, your favorite new movie that just came out. I was just able to share, like, oh my gosh, well, I've started taking these aminos in the morning and having a power shake instead of coffee when I go out the door. And it was helping me make it through the day. And as a result, a bunch of those moms jumped on board with me. And before I went back to going back to work, by the time I was supposed to go back to work at 6 months postpartum, I had actually replaced that part-time income. And I never actually had to go back to work because I joined the Million Mom movement and this incredible community. And I was able to actually help support my family with this. And so that was 10 and a half years ago. And this has been what has supported our family for so long. And I love that my kids grew up with this, because my youngest son actually, at about 8 months old, when I was starting to feed him food, at first I was not sure if I wanted to share the power shake with him. But of course, our kids want what we have, right? If you're eating, they want what's on your plate. If you're drinking something, they want to drink it too. And so naturally, I was like, okay, well, I guess he could have a sip of my power shake. And you guys, I was never able to have a power shake in front of him again without a baby tantrum, because he loved it. And as a result, when I was ready to wean him, he actually was weaned onto power shake. He loved the power shake so much that I would water it down and put it in his sippy cup, and that's what he would have. And so I just wanted to share that inspiration with you all. Thank you so much, Grace, for leading us today, and thank you all for being here with us today. I'm going to go ahead and share how you can participate in being a part of this movement, because each and every one of you is a part of the Million Mom movement. And we're so grateful to have you here, and we want to continue to grow this movement. And so if this is your first presentation you're attending or watching the replay too, we want to invite you to just come lean into what we have to offer here. And so we have some incredible platforms that you can participate in. If you're not already, please go like our Facebook page where this is currently live right now. So you can share that with your community right now on your Facebook pages or in your stories. You can also join our Million Mom Movement Official, which is a Facebook group. And in that group, we share these replays. We also share any resources that we have. And we invite you to also come and share resources and your stories within that group as well. It's our community group where we'd love for you to participate. And then please follow us on Instagram. Instagram is mainly where I find your reels, your posts, and I can repost them either in our stories or on our social media and tag you on it. So please make sure and use our hashtag so that I can find you. Tag us in your stories and posts, so that way you can be featured too, and so that we can highlight you as part of our community. And then of course, last but not least, please subscribe to our YouTube channel where this and so many other replays are posted. A lot of times people ask me where to find resources, and I tell them, Google Million Mom Movement and any keyword that you're looking for, and you will find the resources of what it is that you want. And you can share those replays, you can watch those replays, and just get inspired by what we have here in our community. And so I would love to give you all a little call to action here and invite you to come over to our Million Mom movement. You can do it right now. on your Facebook. So if you have your phone handy, you can just go ahead and pull up your Facebook, go to Million Mom Movement. And right here, if you scroll down our page, we actually have our featured section where our events are. So here where the events are, I want to invite you to go and join the next event. Invite the people you know. Think right now about the people that you know that want to join us next week and in the weeks to come. So next week, it's about moms with money, how we can inspire more moms with this business opportunity. And then the following week will be our third Friday of the month, which is always featured around autism. This month, we're going to be talking about Down syndrome. And so this coming week, just think about the people on those two topics that you might want to be talking to in the next couple weeks and start thinking about them, start reaching out to them, recreating that connection if you haven't been connected for a minute with them. So that way you can invite them to some of these future topics. These are community action calls. We want to invite you to use this as a tool to inspire your community. And so this coming week, Dominique's going to be leading us on a beautiful presentations about moms with money, empowering your financial future. And this is where we're going to meet moms in our community who are creating income and impact through health and wellness. So if you have stories around this topic, please reach out to Dominique so that you can be featured. And just go down here. You can find all the information here about what we're going to be sharing. You can go and join this event. And then once you press going, you can invite your friends. If you'd like to invite your friends here or send personal invitations is always what we highly recommend. And we just appreciate each and every one of you being here, being a part of the Million Mom Movement, and really being a part of our incredible community. So thank you all so much for being here today. Have a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next week.